All right, so let's go ahead and jump into there, fixed it. Jump into the quiz. Sorry, the video just had me. I didn't yet share the screen with it. So it would have been a really weird video for people viewing online. All right, let's look at some direct materials and direct labor quantity and price variances. So let's start right here. Last year, Flanders Incorporated created a budget for this year, like companies are wont to do. That budget was based on 109,500 units of finished goods production. So they looked into the future and said, I think we're going to do 109.5 thousand units of production, volume, if you will. In that static budget, which is what we call that, the firm expected 36,500 hours of direct labor. So there's going to be a relationship between just pulling out, as I'm reading this question, okay, I'm probably going to have to pull out what the standard is. When we said we wanted 109.5 finished goods units, we predicted then we'd have to use 36.5 hours of direct labor. So the relationship with there, which in my head I'm looking at, looks like about 3 to 1, 3 finished goods units to 1 unit of direct labor. That's probably their standard for direct labor hours. Which the 36,500 is the standard quantity in the total sense. The 3 finished goods units to 1 direct labor hour is the standard of in the micro sense. 2 ways of talking about standard quantity. Almost always I'm talking about, in the equations, we're talking about the total standard quantity. Okay, standard price for direct labor is $20.50 per hour. Great. Actual results for this year differ from the static budget, as it almost always does. Flanders Incorporated produced 111,000 finished goods units, used 36,710 direct labor hours, and paid an actual price for direct labor of $19.50. Which of the following is the firm's direct labor quantity variance? So right off the bat, I can start ruling out some of the information as being relevant, because I'm looking at my pyramid mentally or literally, and I know I'm looking for a quantity variance, which is this one right here. Now we have actual quantity times actual price to get the price variance. So we've got to pull the lever on the price. So actual quantity times standard price. And then we need to pull the lever on the quantity now. We have standard quantity times standard price. Nowhere in this comparison is actual price mentioned. So I don't care about the 1950. I don't need that information for this problem. What I need are actual quantity, standard quantity, and standard price, which is, here I'll code it with underlines. I need 1, 2, 3 different items of information. So we have actual quantity given to us. The actual quantity is 36,710. And yeah, I'll keep doing it on the board. I've kind of committed to this, haven't I? No, I've committed to the visualization. Let's put it in Excel so we can review it later. If we want to, it'll be on the website. Actually, I think I often prefer it that way. Okay, so this is Flanders DL quantity variance problem. I'll write it that way, make it clearer. So we have our actual quantity of 36,000. Not writing it because numlock is off. 36,710 direct labor hours. We also need to know standard quantity, and we need to know the standard price, which we can put in right now. I know 20.5. Now, standard quantity I'm going to have to calculate. And I'll put that at the bottom of these calculations. So we know we built a budget. This was our volume. 109,500. And our standard quantity in the static budget was 36,500. So given this volume, we expected 36,500. And yeah, let's see. There are 3 finished goods units per per direct labor hour. Great. So every hour, every 20 minutes, we expect to be able to produce a finished goods unit of direct labor hours. Further down. Great. Now, given that we produced 111,000, there's the number, 111,000 finished goods units, we would expect to be able to consume our standard quantity for that amount of volume would be 111,000 divided by 3, which comes out nicely to 37,000 even. So that's going to be our standard quantity right there. Okay, so we had to figure out what the ratio was of finished goods units to direct labor units. That's that exchange rate we're doing two different types of units. We've got to exchange from finished goods units, or volume as we call it, to the input units, in this case direct labor units. And we have this relationship in the budget because that was our standard. We think every 20 minutes we could produce a finished goods unit. All right, well, in actuality, we produced 11,000 using 37, we produced 111,000, meaning we should have used 37,000 as our standard quantity. Now, did we actually use that? No, we did a little better than that. So we already know it's going to be favorable. We can knock out these two unfavorable options. It's just a question of whether the math will end up being 59.45 or 43.05. I know it's favorable because I know this actual quantity, the more actual number, the more actual quantity is lower than standard quantity. We use fewer hours to produce 111,000 finished goods units. We save some time somewhere. Okay, so let's do the actual math. This is the equation. The quantity variance is, and doing it algebraically, actual quantity minus standard quantity, all scaled by the standard price, meaning multiplied by. Okay, so actual quantity minus standard quantity, and I got to go back and put parentheses in, times the standard price. So I get negative 59.45. Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's what 3 represents. I think oftentimes it's expressed inverse of what we did. I took finished goods units in the numerator and divided it by the direct labor hours in the denominator. I think at least some of the times that I talk about it, I see how many input units per finished goods unit, and I do it the opposite. But either way, 1/3 or 3/1, as long as we keep track of what we're doing, we should be okay. I don't know. I feel like I added a layer that unanswered the question.
Yeah, but that's okay. I got it wrong yesterday when I did it, so I guess I did it wrong.
Before I started talking about flipping the denominator and numerator, was that a good answer? Were you happy with it?
I'm still a little confused, but that's
okay. The basic idea, I mean, maybe I can say something here that'll connect some dots, or somehow make it a little more explained. Is that we're kind of like maybe like archaeologists here, and we're saying, well, back in the static budget land, what were our assumptions? And if we had these two numbers, which are given to us right here, when we made the static budget, this is what we did. That tells us that we assumed that to get this volume, we had to consume this number of hours, and the relationship between those two is reflected by this per unit, per finished goods unit direct labor hour. No, excuse me, per direct labor hour finished goods unit number. So we thought we would churn out 3 finished goods units every direct labor hour. I only slightly varied the wording I was using, but I don't know if that helps.
yeah. Is there a reason you did the volume over the hours instead of doing the hours per unit?
Because I didn't want to have 0.3 repeating.
Okay.
There's no good reason to. What you have to do is make sure you have it the same way when you're scaling it to the flexible budget here. So we have to take this 111,000 and divide it by the 3 instead of multiplying it by the 3. Then we'll get a number that's way off. we have to keep it, since I put volume over input units, and I'm trying to figure out the standard quantity of input units, I have to keep volume over 3 to get this standard quantity here, is the idea. If I'd flipped it around and I did direct labor hours over finished goods units volume, then when I come over here, I'd have to put those 111,000 in the denominator and figure out what this in the numerator right here. So I'd have to multiply 111,000 by 0.33333 to get 37,000 then. Does that make sense? Okay. Any cells you want me to look at? Peer into here? Okay. It's also negative. Negative is favorable. Means the more actual number was less than the more hypothetical number. So as we're moving towards reality, the costs went down. That's what negative means. It went down. Then that's favorable. Also, if we're going to be the journal entry for this, we can also tie that together, and we can say if there were questions asked about the journal entry, we know we're going to have to be crediting the quantity variance, the direct labor quantity variance account, because it's favorable, meaning we had less cost, less expense than expected. The variance account is an expense account. It'll go up with a debit, so we had less, meaning it has to go down. So we're going to be crediting the direct labor quantity variance account by 5,945. Okay. All right. There are some of these kinds of questions here, and they approach just a handful of these kinds of questions anyway. They do approach this algebraically. I just have left these in just for a little spice, I guess. I don't know. But I even include the idea that I want you to think about the formula. So you're going to have to tease out a number from the formula that's not what we're used to with the rest of the questions. All right, so I want to know how many actual direct labor hours were worked during February for this company. And if I were writing this in a textbook, like the traditional textbook, I would have some ridiculous premise of like, well, all the files in the world have been destroyed and the physical copies of the timesheets have been burned up in a fire. So you have to calculate the actual hours worked. Okay. Yes, if that happened, you would be prepared by this question. Thank you. I mean, you're welcome. You're welcome. I prepared you for the apocalypse when you have to do that. Okay, so let's look at the information here. We need to know actual direct labor hours worked. Okay, so we know an actual quantity here. So let's look at. I bet we'll have to do something with the price variance equation and pull out the actual quantity from there. Yeah, we're given the price variance. We're given the variance at the end of the calculation. So let me just tell you what let's see, it doesn't have a name. This is the algebraic direct labor price variance question, or at least one of them. So price variance equals actual price minus standard price times actual quantity. And so we know what the price variance is. I don't want it to copy down. It's 18,000. Favorable, meaning it's going to be a negative 18,000. So we know what's on this side of that equation. And we are also given standard price and actual price. So standard price, actual price, we have 15 and 13.5 respectively. We know actual output of units. We know standard quantity per actual production. So this is our standard quantity. This is our volume, is the idea. We don't have actual quantity though. We can solve for actual quantity by simply using this equation here. So I'll put up on the board what I'm doing in this Excel. I know I have 18,000 equals 13.5 minus 15, negative 18,000, I should say, over here, times AQ. And I can solve for AQ this way. So this is just negative 1.5, meaning we spent $1.50 less per hour than we expected. The standard was. So, and then we can divide by negative 1.5 on both sides. So 18 divided by negative 1.5 is 12. Let's see. Here, let's do it in a way that we might do it on the, if you were doing this quickly in Excel without a whiteboard doing the algebra, I would just say I want to take this, what's in the parentheses here, and divide both sides by it. So I take parentheses here and recreate it. So this should be our actual quantity. Okay? Those are spicier ones. So it should be 12,000 hours then? Great. Actual quantity, 12,000 hours. All right. Now we need direct materials quantity variance. That's what this question stem says. So let's look. We have a bunch of information here. We have static budget information. We have actual volume information. We have standard direct materials cost per unit, which is the standard price. Actual direct materials cost per unit, it's actual price. We have the standard, as in the standard per unit of direct materials, so we can use that to get the standard quantity, which we'll need to. Looking for a quantity variance up here. We're going to need the standard quantity to calculate that. And we have two different actual quantities. So which of these two actual quantities should we use for the quantity variance? Actual quantity purchased or actual quantity used? That's right, used. We should use the actual quantity used. So if you need to remember that didn't come naturally to you, you can remember that either by taking the alliteration of actual quantity purchased and the price variance. There's P in both of those. You can remember the responsibility accounting objective of the price and the quantity variance is to go talk to the person responsible for these variances. And the purchasing manager is responsible for the quantity purchased. So you take the price variance to the purchasing manager, and the quantity variance is going to depend on how much direct materials we use. It depends on what we did on the factory floor. Did we have a bunch that got spoiled or wasted? That's going to drive up the quantity variance. And that's going to be the amount used on the floor when you talk to the production manager about that. The third way is that the quantity variance is sometimes called the usage variance. So you can use alliteration for that as well. Usage variance, actual quantity used. If that helps. Okay, so we need this number right here. Let's start copying down our fact pattern here. We have open answer, direct materials, quantity variance. All right, we have our actual quantity used that we need. I keep doing that on the right side here. 688. Okay, we have the actual standard price right here, $4.90. And the last thing we need is the standard quantity. So here is where you're tempted to pick the wrong one, because we also have two different volumes that we could multiply this 0.5 by. So we want to know the standard quantity of direct materials units. Should we multiply that 0.5 standard per unit standard by 1,037 or by 1,011? What should we do? You want to do 1,037? All right. Well, unfortunately, that's incorrect. We need the other one. There you go. There you go. So what this one does is it takes us all the way across to the volume variance, it gets us the standard quantity over here. And so then we'll be doing this as if it's the quantity variance, but it's not. It's the sum of the quantity and the volume variance. What we need is the standard quantity at actual volume, which is the flexible budget. That's what we call it. It's flexible budget compared to the static budget. In fact, what I want you to do throughout the quiz here is anytime you see static budget, run scared. I want it to send off red flags. Like this is a pitfall. It's a way that I'm trying to be tempted off the path here, because we aren't asking about any volume variances, and so we don't need to know much about the static budget. We had to use it up here to tease out the per unit standard for direct labor hours. But here we need to make sure we don't use this because we already have the standard quantity per unit. So what we need is 0.5 is the standard quantity per unit. I can put it fully. Standard quantity of direct materials units per finished goods unit. 0.5. And actual finished goods units. All right, now we can copy down quantity variance equation. We have actual quantity minus the standard quantity. I'll have to go back and put parentheses in. All times the standard price. So this should be our answer for this one here, if I've copied down everything right. Yeah, I grabbed the right actual quantity, got actual quantity used. I got the standard price, and I multiply by the actual finished goods units produced. Maybe one way to think about it is it's almost like we're grading it on a curve. You know, when anybody here come from let me say it this way. A number of times we have accounting majors or business majors who had a former life as an engineering major or a major in the hard sciences. And we welcome them with open arms. We love them. And they look at our math and like, you think that's hard? And anyway, in engineering, if you get a B in a class, oftentimes that's like pretty good. Some of these engineering classes are crazy hard. And the scale of what is normal for your grade distribution is different from, say, a class in a different area, including the business college. So you want to be comparing. You don't want to say, as an accounting major, let's say, I wouldn't want to say, look at the transcript of an engineering student and look at the fact that they got through thermodynamics course 2 with a C+ and say, oh, well, that must not be a very good engineer. That might be one of the hardest courses in the major. That might be actually in the upper 25th percentile of the course of the class. So I want to scale it appropriately to figure out how well the person did, because ultimately I'm asking how well the person did, well or poorly. If I'm looking at the transcript, I'm probably trying to assess their performance. So was it good or was it bad? And here I want to say, well, given the fact that we produced 1,011 units, how much should we have used? How many direct materials should we have used? So I want to put it on the scale, the appropriate scale. I don't want to say, given just all these preconceptions back in the static budget, how much should we have used? No. How much should we have used given the fact that we actually produced 1,011 instead of 1,037. How much do we have used? That's why we get the standard quantity from the actual volume. Okay. Questions on this one? Yeah. Down here? Yeah, no problem. What I didn't do is I didn't label this cell here. So this 505.5 is standard quantity. Haven't done that. No. Sometimes it's very aggressive about copying down information. I don't like it. Okay, good? Great. All right, let's go on down. Okay, we have another one of these spice of life ones. Gives a little variety in what we're doing. When you think about the formula for the direct materials quantity variance to solve the question of the actual quantity of direct materials. That's very similar to the previous one. Using direct materials quantity. So let's grab this down and change some things over. All right. I'm going to change information as I go. But I know I need the quantity variance for direct materials here. Well, the quantity variance in general equation is the same. And I need to figure out actual quantity again. So I'm again going to have to figure out actual quantity. I'll delete all three of these. That's fine. And I'll change this to quantity variance. And I know I'm also going to need standard quantity as I wander away there. There we go. All right, so the actual finished goods volume here is 10,000 units. And we have a standard per unit quantity of 10 pounds per finished goods unit here. So I can put in standard quantity here. 10,000 finished goods units times the 10 pounds means that I should have 100,000 pounds given that level of production. So again, put on the right scale, what's high, what's low. 100,000 is the target, the benchmark given the actual volume of production. That's the benchmark for direct materials units. Standard price here is $3. I don't need no actual price because I'm looking for the quantity equation here. So I need to know actual quantity, standard price, and standard quantity. In fact, actually, I'm going to be given the variance, and I have to solve for the actual quantity. So the quantity variance, it says, is unfavorable and 18,750. So let's put 18,750, and it is indeed going to be a positive one, meaning as we move towards reality, we got a bigger number by $18,750. That's bad. We moved from standard quantity to actual quantity, pulled that lever, and the cost went up. So that's unfavorable. It's going to be a positive one because we're subtracting, we're taking this minus this. If it's positive, then this was bigger. The difference is positive. If it's negative, then this left-hand side was smaller than the right-hand side. We've kept consistent the order in our difference operation here. So we can make those kind of inferences. So we can solve here now. We have 3 of the 4 items in the equation here. We have this side of this quantity variance variable. We have our standard quantity, and we have our standard price. So what I can do is I can say I want to divide both sides by the standard price to get that out of there, to cancel that out. So I want to take this 18,750 divided by 3. All right, now we have canceled out the standard price, and I want to add in the standard quantity because that'll get rid of it over here. And then what I'll have is a number over here equals actual quantity. That should be the right answer there. So what I did, if you weren't able to follow along, we have quantity variance equals actual quantity minus standard quantity times standard price. And we have 18,750 equals AQ minus 100,000 times 3. First, divide both sides by 3. And then we're going to subtract 100K from both sides. Oh, excuse me, we're going to add 100K. There we go. That's what's going on. So we can cancel out that. And we're left with just this number, which is 106,250, if I remember it right off the top of my head. Yeah. Equals AQ. That's all that's left on this side is the AQ. Okay. So these kinds of questions are the exception to my promise that chapter 3 was the mathiest of the chapters. Okay, these a few sprinkled in questions in chapter 7 here also require some algebraic reasoning here. It pretty much follows this pattern though. You write out the equation, or you look at it in your notes, and you say, I have this variable, I have this variable, this variable, this variable. There's one variable left. Solve for that variable that's left, and that ends up being the answer. Okay, what question is this one? Okay. All right, Keep It Safe Incorporated manufactures a popular protective case for mobile phones. The standard quantity of titanium alloy per telephone is 0.5 grams. Wow. Titanium protective case, that's intense. The standard price of the alloy is $100 per gram. In January, Keep It Safe purchased 2,000 grams of the alloy for a total of $210,000. Keep It Safe produced 3,800 telephones. What was the direct materials price variance for the alloy in January? All right. What might be, I haven't really parsed this entirely out in my head, but what called my attention when I read it is I gave you a total actual number here. I said this rectangle right here overall is $210,000. Actual quantity, I said it, 2,000 grams times some actual price gives us $210,000. I think the actual price that gives us that would be 10.5 or, let me not try to do that in my head right now. But I might have to pull out the actual price to solve this equation. I might have to. If I'm committed to using the algebraic form, I probably will have to pull it out. But remember, there are two ways to solve this problem. There's the algebraic way and there's the non-algebraic way, two formulas that we had. Each of these variances has two formulas here. Now we're doing direct materials price variance. Okay, so we have this full actuals, that's the rectangle on the far left, full actual quantity times actual price, minus this quasi-budget, actual quantity times standard price or budgeted price, this middle rectangle. So we could just take this and plug in $210,000 here because I gave you that in the problem. We can solve it a little faster this way. If we're able to switch modes, we can do a little more, save a couple steps. What do we need left? We need to know actual quantity purchased times budgeted price, though. Okay, so our budgeted price is $100. Actual quantity purchased is 2,000 grams. Well, that's pretty easy. That's going to be $200,000. Let's just keep it safe. We have 210,000 is the actual cost of the direct material. That's the rectangle on the far left. And we have standard price. And we have actual quantity purchased. So $200,000 is what we call the quasi-budget, because it's half and half actual, half budgeted. So it's at the standard price, but the actual quantity purchased or Yeah, actual quantity purchased or used. So we have is 210,000 minus 200,000. We know it's going to be 10,000. It's one of those two answers. But is it favorable or unfavorable? What do you think? We're down to 50-50 here. We know it's not this or this. It's got to be 10,000 or 10,000. I agree. I think it's unfavorable. Yeah. How'd you come up with that? Positive. Good. I like it when we use the rule of the sign here. As long as we make the adjustments that we have to next week. There's one adjustment we have to make that rule. Add a corollary to the rule. But yes, it's positive means that it's going to be unfavorable. That's an expense going up. That's moving towards actuality. It means it went up when we went closer to actuality. And we also compare these numbers and say we actually spent $210,000. We should have spent $200,000. I mean, if you say it in a sentence, sometimes that makes it pop really easily. Like, what does this mean? I have a bunch of numbers. What do they mean? Oh, we spent $210K. We should have spent $200K. Oh, yeah. Well, that's bad. That's unfavorable. Yeah. Yeah. I multiply the standard price and the actual quantity purchased. Yeah, no problem. Okay. Yeah.
On my quiz, I got a word problem and it threw me for a loop.
Yeah, I think there are still some hanger-on conceptual definitional questions. Okay, let's see if I can find it actually. Maybe I'll find it. So we got things right here. Just want to see if there are reds that aren't unanswered. Unanswered. Good. Is it this one or like it?
Yes.
It's the exact one? Okay. So which of the following statements is true about the journal entries to record direct labor? So there are two options that are at odds. One says that given the standard cost and actual cost, you can calculate debits or credits to direct labor price and quantity variances. And the other here says you cannot, given standard cost and actual cost, calculate the debits and credits to direct labor price and quantity variances. And the other two, let's see. If both direct labor variances are both favorable, the debit to work in process is less than the credit to wages payable. Okay, so let's think about what that means. If that is that right? So the debit to work in process is at full standard. We have an entry here, and it is X amount, right? And we know at the bottom we have a credit to wages payable or wages expense, which passes through to wages payable. And it's Y. And we're saying if both variances are favorable, so favorable variances, do they get a debit or a credit? So we had a favorable variance, meaning we spent less than we expected. It's going to be a credit to these variance accounts because they're expense accounts. It means the expense accounts are going down. They're counteracting other expenses. So we have a credit and a credit of some unknown quantity, Z1 and Z2, to the quant and price variance accounts. So it's saying, given that information, the debit at X is less than the credit of Y. That can't be true because we have extra credits lining up over here. So to balance, this would have to be the amount of Z1 plus Z2 plus Y, which is greater than Y by itself. Okay, so we know that was wrong, and I'm still eyeing. Just the test taking in me says if there are two that are mutually exclusive, like that first one and that fourth one, I bet one of those is the answer. But just for completeness, let's rule out the other ones too. So direct labor price variance and direct labor quantity variance have to be recorded separately at different times because actual quantity used is different from actual quantity purchased. Does this one sound true or untrue for direct labor to you? I formulated that sentence weird. A dangling participle, I think, is what I had. You said thumbs down. And somebody said false too as well. Yeah. This doesn't sound. This sounds like it might be true for direct materials. We have two actual quantities in direct materials: actual quantity purchased and actual quantity used. But we don't for price, or excuse me, we don't for direct labor. That's what I meant to say, but I looked at direct labor price, and so in my head I put price out my mouth for some reason. Yeah, for direct labor, once you purchase the time of somebody, you have used that time. You owe them the amount. So it's the same thing. To buy the time from somebody is to use that time of somebody. And so we have a 4-line entry here for direct labor. Whereas, as we said Tuesday, we have 2 3-line entries when we do direct material. So that one also is incorrect. So my instincts of saying these two that go opposite directions, one of them has to be right, that seems to be the answer here. So all right. So can we or can we not, given standard cost, we're given this, and given actual cost, we're given this, because we have to record wages payable at the actual cost for direct labor. We have to record what we actually owe, or our name is Enron. And we have to record WIP at standard, because that's the rule in standard costing. Do we know, just with those two pieces of information, what these two are? I see some nods. It is technically true. We know what they sum to. We know that together these two have to balance this out. But we don't know how much each one does. We could have, if we have 100 over here and 90 over here, we know that they sum to 10. But it could be this one is 5, this one is 5, this one could be 10, this one could be 0. This one could actually be a debit of 15, in which case this one will have to be a credit of 25, so that they sum to a credit of 10. That makes sense. I'll put this right here to make it nicer. So they could be all over the place, the 2 lines. We don't know just from having this one and this one what they are individually. So we don't know, we cannot calculate debits or credits to direct labor price and quantity variances. We can't do the fill out the journal entry with a plug. That's what that typo-laden question is trying to ask. And that's trying to drive home. That might be the only one. I saw somebody came up to me after class Tuesday, asked about that one as well. I think that might be the only holdover conceptual question back when I was thinking, I'll have some conceptual, I'll have some calculating questions, and it just works better in this class to test the concepts by making you calculate based on the concepts. It just seems to work out better. So yeah, we given standard cost and actual cost, you cannot calculate. So one thing is happening here that I do apologize for. I'm not being precise enough in my terminology sometimes. We had a question, the last one, we have another one like it, where I use the word cost to mean price, as in standard price and standard actual price. And down here, from an earlier, more innocent time, I thought, well, I would only ever use the word cost in this context if I'm talking about the whole rectangle here. That's the standard cost overall. And I have the actual cost over here. That's what this question is giving you to understand. That's what I'm trying to say with this. The standard cost and the actual cost. Whereas in the interim, I've been messier with my wording in some of the other questions. So if you're like a logical person, a rational person would be, is I want to nail down what exactly each of these things means. I have been not precise enough. So don't worry. Well, take heart. Future semesters will not have to suffer through this because this is on the schedule to be improved, this quiz. Doesn't help you at all. Yeah, Joshua. Yes, sure. Did you have a question about this one? Okay, I'll write down inversion, reversion. If I forget, remind me. And we'll do direct labor quantity variance. We'll find a direct labor quantity one. Direct labor quantity, right? Okay. Let's find a good direct labor quantity variance. All right, let's submit it. Make sure we got that question right. Yes, we got the points for it. So here is, did we do this one? We did this one. Let's see a different one. Let's find a different one. An open answer one. Okay. Oh, no. Yeah, my find was direct labor quantity. It looks like the open answers I might put DL instead. All right, let's keep going. Let's try again.
These quizzes only have one open answer. Or is it random?
I think I have seen just one per. Has anybody seen two? Oh. It's random. Yes. I'll have to look at that. Sorry, got three. Okay. Yeah, I've just been pulling with just one per each time. That's one of the things I'll probably sort out. Right now it has one big draw from all the questions in the pool without distinguishing between I don't know off the top of my head. A good amount. It'll be gooder once I take it in the shop. That's a direct materials quantity. Yeah. Oh man, this is we're hunting snipes over here. It's elusive. Oh, this is good. All right, this is our white whale. All right. Open answer, direct labor, quantity variance. All right. So, assuming I did this, assuming this note is correct, it'll be an unfavorable variance because it'll be positive when we complete the calculation. Because I don't want you to try to type in favorable or unfavorable in the thing. I just want a number. So I forced it to be positive, which means unfavorable. So what is the firm's direct labor quantity variance? All right. Let's grab the quantity variance equation. Make sure we got all the variables we need. So we're going to need actual quantity. We're going to need standard quantity. We're going to need actual price to get the quantity variance. Which makes sense. Go back here. Yeah, actual quantity, standard price, and standard quantity. Those are the three variables I need to get the quantity variance. All right, no, I've typed actual price. I need standard price. The standard price is right here. I put it wage here. That's more acceptable than cost since I use cost differently. And I'll to save face here, I did put, when I said cost in the other open answer ones, a parenthesis that says per unit. So it's like per unit cost. I still think I should just be consistent in the terminology more. That's 4.5 though. Standard price is 4.5 per hour. Actual quantity is 612. We don't have to choose between actual quantity purchased and actual quantity used. That was my kidnapping joke. Also just the nature of time. Once I've bought the time, I've used that time, or yeah, that's how the clock works. And we have standard quantity. So this is where we need to decide which of the two finished goods units we multiply our per unit standard quantity by. So what we need to do is we need to take that. We know we have a standard per unit quantity of 0.5. That's given to us. And we need to decide the volume or finished goods units we're going to choose to multiply that by, either 1090 or 1150. Which one should we do? The 1150, that's right. Yeah, because we saw static and we ran screaming, and then we eventually came back to the computer and we said, okay, well that solves that. It should be 1150 because we want to say, given our actual volume, what should we have done? That's our standard quantity. What's a good grade for direct labor used, given the actual volume we produced? Now we can let's do the parenthetical to start with. Actual quantity minus standard quantity, just like it says in the equation right here. And we can multiply that by standard price, just like it says in the equation right here. And that should be our answer. 166.5 should be our quantity variance. Does that look good? Oh. Yeah, Kaylee. The what? Okay, we got inversion, reversion I got to get to, but then I'll get conch? Was I reading Lord of the Flies or something when I wrote this? Okay. Inversion, reversion first. Let's find it. Or one of them anyway. Might be multiple. When I come up with a really good name, I reuse it, Also, when I come up with a bad name, I reuse it. All right. Does this look good? Okay. Inversion reversion sells mufflers. In fact, let's go to this question stem before I keep going. We're wanting the quantity variance, direct materials quantity variance. All right. They sell mufflers. These mufflers have the following standard and actual quantities for direct materials used. So the standard quantity is 1,000 direct materials units. The actual quantity used is 900 direct materials units. All right, so we have a standard quantity given to us and actual quantity used. Now, I'll keep in mind that maybe as I go through this test bank, we might edit this to add something and say a sentence that says that actual volume and static budget volume is the same, so that I don't trigger any worries on that front when you're doing this question. This question just wants you to accept this as standard quantity. And there's no other way to do it. All right, inversion reversion's total standard cost, i.e. standard quantity times standard price, is $54,000. So assume the firm's static budget for finished goods, muffler production, and actual finished goods. Oh, I did say that. I did put a sentence in there. See? I'm not that bad at this. I think I heard somebody laugh at that joke, that statement I made. That was cold. What is the direct materials quantity variance? So what I've given you is this rectangle, $54,000 is the standard cost, the total standard cost. And then I've given you actual quantity used and standard quantity, but I did not give you standard price. So you're going to have to take that $54,000 and the standard quantity I give you to tease out what the standard price is. And then you can solve for the quantity variance, either by multiplying the actual quantity by standard price and then taking this minus this, or by then saying, oh, well, now I can do the algebra because I have the standard price. So let's look at both ways of doing that. If I have 54,000 SQ times SP, and I know SQ, I'll put it in the wrong place again, is 1,000, because they told me so. The question here told me so. Then standard price has to be $5 and has to be $54. Why is it doing 5.4 in my head? That has to be the standard price. The 54,000 there, which is the product here, divided by 1,000 will just leave us with the standard price. Is that part making sense? We can tease out what one of the standards was given what our budgeted amount. Okay, and we can solve it either by using our handy-dandy quantity variance here, or I might have come up with a good name for this, but I have since forgotten. The rectangle method, where we subtract the rectangles against each other. The quasi-budget rectangle put the other data point we have 900 is our actual quantity used. Our quasi-budget is going to be that 900 times the standard price. That's what it says. Actual quantity times standard price. And in direct materials, we have it price variance has actuals over here. Actual quantity purchased times actual price. Actual quantity purchased times standard price. And then the quantity variance has a whole separate rectangle here in the quasi-budget. Actual quantity used times standard price. And over here, standard quantity times standard price. Okay, so with direct materials, we have this little gap here. Gap that we watch out for. But that's all that's what do I say? That's why when I was pointing here, I was saying actual quantity used, because we're actually using this diagram right here, actual quantity used. Quasi-budget is here when we're talking about the quasi-budget is expressed this way when we're talking about the quantity variance. Okay, so this is our rectangle, our quasi-budget rectangle. And we can simply take that quasi-budget rectangle minus the standard budget rectangle. So standard cost was 54,000. Quasi-budget cost was 48,600. So the difference of 5,400, negative 5,400, come back to that in a second, favorability in just a second, is our quantity variance. Or we could do the algebra method and take this algebraic, take this equation right here and say, all right, the quantity variance is going to be actual quantity used minus standard quantity times standard price. Get rid of that dividing sign. Oh, the dividing sign is when I tried to put a parenthetical. That's what happened. Okay, so I've just recreated with the cells what is in the equation here. Actual quantity used, B57, minus actual standard quantity, B59, and that difference multiplied by B60 here, which is standard price. And we again get the same negative 5,400, which I've given you a second to think about it. Is that a favorable or unfavorable variance? Okay, it's favorable, yes. Because that means that our quasi-budget number, which is more real than our standard cost number, as we move towards reality, cost went down. That's what a negative number means. Because we took this minus this, so it's negative. This must be smaller than this. Cost went down, heading towards reality. Okay, either of those methods works for this one. I think the trick that probably, if this was tripping up or you weren't quite sure about this question, is the having to tease out the standard price. That's I think the extra step this one does. It's a little fun wrinkle. I like spinning these questions like spice of life and fun and acting like this is really cool, because otherwise I feel really sad. Punchline wasn't quite as useful as I thought. Okay, questions about this one? We good? All right. Oh, well, the conch. We got to go find the conch. Or the conch. I think it's actually conch. Conch? Conch.
Conch.
Huh. I had a memory. Like I know I usually pronounce this one wrong. And I would default to conch. All right, let's try and find this thing. Conch Plebeian Incorporated. Wow. This good? This is a good one to look at? Okay. At the end of this period, Conch Plebeian Incorporated debited $5.1 million to WIP to record direct labor costs during the period. All right? We're debiting to WIP. Is that at full actual or at full standard? That's got to be at full standard. I remember that rule of thumb. So that 5.1 million is the standard cost, standard quantity of direct labor times the standard price of direct labor, given actual volume of production. The firm also debited direct labor price variance for $12,500. Okay, well, wait. Okay, I have the let's get rid of some of the extras on this one. I have the debit to and then we're going to debit. I have 5.1 million, debit to WIP. I have debit to the price variance of 12,500. Okay. The firm's actual direct labor hours are $250,000, and actual price is $20.80 per direct labor hour. Okay, so I can multiply those two and get my actual cost. $250,000 times $20.80 gets me something. I'm going to call this the conch question. That's how they phoneticized it, right? Conch. Oh, no W. Okay, so we have actual quantity, 250,000. Actual price, $20.80, it says. Okay, here, I'll be consistent for once. I'll put them like that, number first, then label. We know that standard quantity times standard price is 5.1 million. That's the full standard cost here. That's what we debited WIP with. Okay, and what we need is to figure out the quantity variance here. Okay, so we want to know the debit here. We know this. We know this. No. We can figure out this and we can figure out this. Do we have enough to tease out these two right here? Because that's one of the things. Do we have enough? That's one of the options. Maybe we don't have enough information. The other options, the other question is, which of these is it? Now my radar's going up saying, oh, there's a favorability question. Maybe he's going to be testing me on favorability. Those are two suspect answer choices. But let's look at this. So what I need ultimately are the factors that go into the quantity variance, or the factors that go into the quasi-budget. Here, I'll put this there. Because with either one of those, I could take this rectangle and subtract this rectangle, subtract it from this rectangle to get quantity variance. Or I could take the components that go into the quantity variance bit by bit. So I have the actual quantity, great. And in the 5.1 million, I have the product of these two. But I don't quite have, let's see, what else do I have? I have 12,500 equals, that's the direct labor variance. It's a debit, so it was a positive number. It's debit, we're debiting the expense account, that's extra cost. The variance is, its cost went up as we went towards reality for the price variance here. In fact, this is the way to solve this problem. Here we go. So I now feel much more confident that that third answer choice is not the right answer. We're going to focus on the rectangle method here because 12.5 is actual cost minus the quasi-budget cost. That's 0, should be a minus. No. Should be a dash. It's this rectangle minus this rectangle. Well, we can calculate this. We have the two components. 250,000 times 20.8 is some number, and that's this rectangle. And we have the price variance. So this minus 1250 should get us this. If we rearrange this equation just algebraically, we can add quasi-budget to both sides and subtract 1250 from both sides. We get actual cost minus 1250 equals the quasi-budget amount. And that'll give us the quasi-budget amount. Then we can take that minus the standard amount to get the quantity variance. So we use the rectangle method, and we can get it just right. Okay, so actual cost is right here. And then actual cost minus, oh, I didn't put it. Actual cost minus 12,500. That should give us our quasi-budget cost. Take our quasi-budget cost and subtract away the standard cost. We'll get 87,500. So what we have is, let's erase some stuff. We've got some old questions up here. Get rid of that right now. So we have 5.1 million. We calculated 5.2 million. And when we got the quasi-budget, we got I'll just write out the whole thing. That's 5,187,500 as our amount in the middle. There's one more way we can solve this too, which maybe is even faster. But yeah, and then we can take 5.1875 million minus 5.1 million, and we end up with 87,500 left over. Positive, so we went up, favorable or unfavorable. Cost went up, unfavorable. To the more real one, closer to reality, unfavorable here. The other thing we could do is we could start from here. We can say we know our overall variance between standard cost and actual cost is 100,000, meaning we have a debit of 5.1 million to WIP. We have a credit. We should have a credit to wages payable or wages expense, 5.2 million. So we know we have to bridge. We have to add a debit of 100K between the two variance accounts. And I gave you This is $12,500. We debited to. Okay, so what's left? There, I'll do it this way. 100,000 minus the 12.5, 87.5 thousand has to be the debit here. So I got like 3 different ways to solve it. Each one maybe is takes some putting the pieces together. I like this one. I like that I that's why I phrase it in the question as journal entries to kind of say, hey, maybe use a journal entry. Solve it that way. Once you write in the 3 points you have, well, once you calculate out 250,000 times 20.8 gives us 5.2 million actual cost, and that has to be the credit. You have 3 of the 4 lines in the journal entry, and you can just balance it. And you can remember, the one last thing you have to do is remember, okay, a debit to quantity, is that favorable or unfavorable? Debit to quantity variance. That's the rule of thumb you have to do if you're going to go that way. Okay, great. Shoot me emails if you've got questions about the quiz between now and leave anything. No, we got all the questions. If you got questions about the questions between now and the end of the day Friday, then let me know. Thank you.